This material is coming from sections 4.3 and 4.4, and it is on different types of chemical reactions. There are 5 types of reactions that I want you to be familiar with for the test. The first one is a neutralization reaction. In a neutralization reaction, we have an acid reacting with a base to produce water and some kind of ionic compound. For example, HBr, which is an acid, reacting with KOH, which is a base. When they come together, they produce H2O and KBr. Another example is nitric acid, HNO3, reacting with NaOH. They come together to make H2O and sodium nitrate, NaNO3. We are, in section 4.3, going to talk about what an acid is and what a base is, which will help you be able to identify these substances as acids and these substances as bases. But one of the key features of a neutralization reaction is that you always have water as a product. When you see that, that's a sign to you that the reaction is neutralization. So even without knowing the acids and knowing the bases, you can still pick out a neutralization reaction because of the formation of water. The second type of reaction that I want you to be familiar with is called a combination reaction. In a combination reaction, we have multiple reactants, usually 2. So we have a reactant combining with another reactant, and they make just one product. So you have a couple things coming together, combining to just have one thing in the end. For example, 2H2 plus O2 makes 2H2O. Here you have 2 reactants making one product. Or another example is 2 aluminums with 3 molecules of iodine combining together to make 2 Ali3. Again, 2 things coming together to make 1. And a third example is 2 sodium atoms reacting with a molecule of chlorine to make 2 NaCl's. So again, 2 reactants combining to make one product. And that's the characteristic of the combination reaction. That's how you can identify it. 2 things coming together for one. The third type of reaction is a decomposition reaction. A decomposition reaction is kind of like the opposite of a combination reaction. So in here we have one type of reactant, and it decomposes or breaks apart to make multiple products. We're going to have at least 2. And all of the examples that we're going to see in this class, it's just going to be 2 products, but it could be more. So one example would be 2 molecules of hydrogen peroxide, H2O2, decomposing to make water and molecular oxygen. Another example would be 2 compounds of copper 1 chloride decomposing to make copper 2 chloride and atomic copper metal. And again, the characteristic of decomposition is you have one thing going to two. So the neutralization reactions produce water. Combination reactions have only one product, only one type of product. And decompositions have only one reactant. The fourth type of reaction is a combustion reaction. Combustion is commonly referred to as burning. And in combustion reactions that we're going to look at this quarter, what we have is a hydrocarbon. A hydrocarbon is a molecule that is made of just hydrogen and carbon. That's the type of combustion that we're going to look at in this quarter. Combustion is not exclusive to hydrocarbons, but that's all we're going to focus on. A hydrocarbon reacting with molecular oxygen O2 to produce water and CO2. Some examples are the combustion of methane, so you have CH4 reacting with two molecules of molecular oxygen, 2O2, and they produce one molecule of carbon dioxide and two molecules of water. Another example would be the combustion of propane, C3H8, reacting with 5 molecules of oxygen. They'll produce 3 molecules of CO2 and 4 molecules of H2O. So the characteristic of a combustion reaction is that it's always going to have oxygen as a reactant and CO2 and H2O as a product. If you're using the presence of water as your sign to help you pick out a neutralization reaction, you want to make sure if you see water that it's just water with some other stuff. It's not water with CO2 and O2. Water with CO2 and O2 is combustion. Water with other ionic compounds is neutralization. And the fifth and final type of reaction that I want you to be familiar with is called a displacement. In a displacement reaction, what you have are reactants trading partners. By partners, I just mean their cation or their anion. And all the precipitation reactions that we looked at the end of last week and this week, all of those were displacement reactions because we were taking the cation of one reactant and putting it together with the anion of the other. So they were swapping, basically, those compounds were swapping their anions, or you could think about it like they were swapping their cations. And so you have a whole slew of displacement reactions in your notes and in the work that you did with this week's lab. You can also have displacement reactions that take this form. So let's say we have zinc with 2 molecules of HCl. That produces zinc chloride, ZnCl2, and H2 gas. And this doesn't look the same as the precipitation reactions that we saw, but what you have in this reaction is the chloride going from the hydrogen over to the zinc. So that also is a displacement because you're moving the anion from one substance to another. So again, what I want you to be able to do is look at a chemical reaction and identify it as neutralization, combination, decomposition, combustion, or displacement. I'm not going to ask you to give me an example of a decomposition or something like that. I'm going to ask you to look at a written out equation and characterize it as one of these 5. And your clues are going to be the presence of water with just ionic compounds, that's neutralization. 2 things going to 1, combination. 1 thing going to 2, decomposition. Oxygen, CO2, and H2O, combustion. Switching places, anions going from one thing to another, that's a displacement. Your study question should be something along the lines of, what is the difference between neutralization, combination, decomposition, combustion, and displacement reactions, which this video will not let me have the time to write out. But that's what I want you to write, and I don't think you need a summary for this section because it's very short.